foolish mortals. Oop, I set my pen down and it was loud. Welcome, foolish mortals, back to the Shivering Mouse podcast and back to the Villain's Lair. I am so excited to see you today. Today we're going to be talking about a villain that really doesn't get heard from that much anymore, and it is an older Disney villain, and her name is the magnificent, marvelous, Mad Madam Mim. She comes from Disney's The Sorcerer and the Stone, and if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is one of my favorite Disney movies. It's absolutely fantastic, and it gives you a better idea as to the reason why King Arthur's sword Excalibur is in the anvil in the middle of Disney World, something that won't make much sense if you haven't seen the movie. I mean, sure, the Arthurian legends kind of sink in with a lot of fairy tales, and so you may just be thinking it's some kind of fairy tale connection, but Disney actually has a King Arthur movie from prior to Arthur being king, and so I don't know, it's kind of fun to get that reference, but at the same time, the villain herself is a pretty fun character. She's actually not in a very big piece of the movie. Most of the struggles with the movie come from Merlin actually trying to teach Arthur to be a good king and really to be an adult in the presence of, so many neglectful adults in his life. But it's fun that they threw in this kind of crazy villain. She's from the book The Sword and the Stone by T.H. White. It is a little bit less known than its later version, The Once and Future King, and so a lot of people don't know of Mim because she does not actually appear in the later version of the book. She's only present in The Sword and the Stone, and so she was kind of later removed. This served as her inspiration for the Disney movie. However, her character was also kind of inspired by Disney critics, I almost said Disney fans, but Disney critics really, who tended to be critical and rather snarky about the overall lighthearted kind of what they called saccharine kind of tones to most of Disney's features, and so Mim's kind of obnoxious, whiny hatred of light magic and of all things wholesome and beautiful, these are kind of them picking on people who criticize them for being too lighthearted and too family-friendly. So it's kind of funny how Disney was already getting speared for that back in back in the 60s, and yet they've still retained that reputation, but clearly this was happening enough that they needed to make a character kind of satirizing this particular criticism. So that makes the character even more fun when you realize that. Buddy, okay, come sit up here. If you're going to be grumpy, I can't have you making grumpy noises on the video, okay? Sorry about that, guys. So, Mim is completely crazy. It's one of the first things you notice about her. She's very, very, very dynamic. Like, she's almost hyperactive. She leaps rapidly from one emotion to another. She moves very, very quickly across her little house. She's very, almost spastic. She's very, very energetic, especially for what appears to be quite an old lady. Her likes on the Disney Wiki page include solitaire, all things evil, dark magic, and winning. I think everybody likes winning, but you have to earn it. And in the case of today's story, she simply does not. While her powers, she's very, very arrogant about her powers. She claims they rival Merlin's. You don't really see, until her wizard's duel with Merlin, you don't really see her do anything too terribly impressive. She's a pretty skilled shapeshifter, but other than that, her skills include wilting a flower and stuff like that. So mostly her shapeshifting seems to be her most impressive part of her skill set. The rest of everything seems fairly mild. She's very, very competitive with Merlin. She sees him as a rival. I think he sees her as kind of an inconvenience, but she feels powerfully competitive with him. She dislikes Arthur immediately on finding out that he's on friendly terms with Merlin, because he displays a loyalty to Merlin, and of course Merlin is a light wizard. So these are two of the things that she dislikes most, light and loyalty. So she immediately then transforms into a cat because Arthur at the time is a bird, and she is going to try and eat him because if he's a friend of Merlin's, then he needs to go. So Merlin is summoned to this particular event by his owl Archimedes, who saw that Arthur was in trouble and went to Merlin for help. Merlin intervenes, and he and Mim agree to have a wizard's duel. She's very confident that she's going to win this thing. Like, I've never seen anybody with this much bluster. Like, she is absolutely sure she is by far the superior magician in this fight. She goes ahead and sets forth some rules. For example, that what they turn into can only be animal, no vegetable, no mineral. So, just animals in this wizard's duel as far as shape-shifting. So at this point, we already know it's going to be a shape-shifting duel. So she has chosen the battle specifically to play to her specific set of strengths. Second kind of rule that she puts in place is that there can be no imaginary creatures. She specifically says things like pink dragons. And Archimedes then comments from the peanut gallery that Mim only wants rules so that she can break them. Turns out this is not an exaggeration. While she and Merlin are having their wizard's duel, apparently the goal is you turn into different animals and basically try to eat and or kill each other. So if one turns into a mouse, the other may turn into a snake, and so on and so forth. Disney helps us keep track of which is which in this particular fight by making sure which is which. By making sure that Merlin's animal is always blue and Mim's is always some combination of pink and purple, which seem to be kind of her preferred color scheme anyway. And they compete like this back and forth for quite some time. I know there's a chicken involved and an alligator involved and just lots of animal shape-shifting, which is the kind of one of the main things we've seen Merlin do with his magic so far too. So it ends up being a really fun fight to watch, and lots and lots of kind of physical comedy gags. It's really fun. But as Archimedes says, Mim likes to cheat. She's a big fat cheaty McCheater face, and she turns herself into a purple dragon at the end of the fight. And when Merlin calls her out on it, Mim, you said no dragons. She said, did I say no purple dragons? Did I? So she's not only willing to cheat, but she's willing to be arrogant about her own loophole that she put in the cheat, turning into a purple dragon instead of a pink one. This girl's a jerk, right? And so she then almost takes Merlin out. Up until now, he's had kind of the upper hand, and he's been outsmarting her left and right. But it's hard to outdo a dragon with actual animals, and really the reason why she put the rules in place that she did was not to limit herself, because she always intended to cheat. She put these rules in place to limit Merlin, who has a sense of honor and will not be cheating today. So she's this terrible fire-breathing dragon, and she's all but destroyed Merlin when he makes one last change. One of the other rules they set at the beginning of their battle was no disappearing, and Merlin appears to have done just that. So Mim feels at this point that either way she's won, because either Merlin has cheated by disappearing, and for some reason that only counts as a forfeit if her opponent cheats, not if she does, or he has, basically given up. And this turns out not to be true. You hear, as she's gleefully cackling about her victory, that Merlin has not disappeared. He's become a very, very small organism. He has become a germ. He infects her, and she's terribly sick. We see her at the end of kind of the battle, back at home trying to rest. Merlin prescribes lots and lots of sunshine, which she hates because, of course, it is good, and therefore she cannot like it. She's probably the most brazen evil for the sake of being evil that we have seen since Maleficent. She just likes to be bad, and whereas now we tend to have more villains who think that they're the good guy but they're actually bad. No, she's perfectly comfortable with being bad. In fact, she's more comfortable being bad. And so she's stuck in bed trying to get over her Merlin-induced sickness, while Arthur and Merlin move on to their lives to become the King of England. Now, we don't see Madame Mim very much in Disney media anymore. I assume she was pretty popular back in the day, but I'm surprised with how often they use Merlin that they don't use his counterpart more often. She can be found on the House of Mouse, in the Donald Duck comics. You can see her in the Descendants series, which I think is from the Disney Channel, and she's mentioned as being in the Kingdom Hearts series, but I haven't seen her personally. Now, I don't own all of the games, so those of you who have been wondering why I haven't been continuing my Kingdom Hearts review, the copy of the first Kingdom Hearts game I had was back for the PlayStation 2. Yeah, for the 2. And I have 3, and that's it. I have number 1 and number 3. So I've been trying to, hoping to get Kingdom Hearts the story so far, and then from then on we'll pick up Kingdom Hearts segment again. But for the most part right now, I don't have it. I will be excited to see where exactly Madame Mim appears in Kingdom Hearts. Now, sometimes these Disney villains have a major part in the plot in Kingdom Hearts, but sometimes they're just referenced in an item or accessory. So it'll be interesting to see the depth of her character in Kingdom Hearts, because it's really not mentioned in the online source that I was using today. Now, I think that is most of what I have for Madame Mim. Really, as I've broken down the motivations of most of them, in the case of Madame Mim, she's very, very competitive, and she's very, very arrogant. And not only is this overconfidence and arrogance kind of her downfall, but it is also her motivation. It's what drives her to fight Merlin in the first place, because she's sure that she's pretty much already won, and that this isn't even going to be hard for her. Turns out she underestimated him, as people tend to do when they're overconfident, and that ultimately led to her downfall. Either way, she's a hilarious villain. She's uber sassy, and again, if you haven't seen The Sword in the Stone, Disney Plus is out now. I haven't searched for it, but I'm pretty sure it's on there, and you should definitely check it out. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll look forward to talking to you about our next Disney attraction on Friday or Saturday. Thank you again.